Jay here, Stretford, Paddock. This is Academy Review. Joining me as always is Finn, otherwise known on your socials as Academy Scoop. How we doing, bro?
Yeah, very good, yeah. Another top week for the Academy. Lots of positivity to bring, so I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited as well because you always do bring a bit of positivity. Plus, the first team have had a win as well. So this could be positive central today. We could be absolutely loving it. I hope so. Anyway, we'll get into it. Where do you want to start?
Yeah, let's start with the under-18s. Yes. Played on Saturday against Wolves, coming off the back of a 1-0 victory against Burnley, so that kind of perfect record was continued into this game. And yeah, it was much the same, to be honest. It feels like almost, going into these games now with the under-18s, you expect nothing but an almost flawless victory. Yeah. That's the way Darren Fletcher has started as the head coach, and it seems like it's the way he means to continue. So yeah, kind of the usual dominant attacking football that we've seen this season, free-flowing, really, really positive. At the heart of a lot of it early in the first half was Amir Ibrahimov and JJ Ibrahimov was playing as kind of an advanced number 8, getting into a lot of attacking positions, and he seemed to have a really good synergy with JJ Gabriel up front, and that was causing a lot of threat early on. There was one point where Gabriel collected the ball in a kind of number 10 position just outside the box, turned really nicely and chipped a ball through to Ibrahimov. He finished with a lovely volley, and then it was ruled out for offside. So things, there was already early threat, and eventually Gabriel would open the scoring in the 13th minute. This time the other way around, Ibrahimov played him through, turned really nicely, chipped the ball over the keeper from pretty close range. Really, really nice kind of intelligent finish. And that was 1-0 United. Good
stuff. That's what I like to hear. I mean, we can get into it now if you want. We can start. Shall we talk about JJ Gabriel?
Let's have a chat about
Okay, because we can wait and you can talk about the rest of the game, which we'll get to.
We will.
But JJ Gabriel, Kid Messi, or whatever you want to call him. I mean, he's been given a few nicknames.
Many nicknames, yeah.
Whenever, I don't watch him anywhere near as much as you do, but whenever I see clips of him on socials or any sort of, feedback from yourselves or whatever, from someone like yourself, or anyone who's watched him, it feels as though you're just running out of words to describe how good he is. Yeah,
it's hard because if I describe what I'm seeing on the pitch, it sounds like I'm going overboard, and it sounds like, we I think as a fan base we have been guilty of sometimes maybe overhyping talents and piling pressure on too early.
I think that's fair.
But objectively speaking, what he's doing is really not normal, and it's incredibly impressive. It's consistent every game. Despite this game, he was playing up front through the middle, and he has done a couple times this season when usually his kind of natural position is on the left. He still manages to have an incredible influence on the game, and he just seems to have this top level understanding of where he should be at all times. He makes the right decisions, but he's also technically just unbelievable. Some of the touches that he was pulling off in this game, we'll talk about in the second half. One of them just before an assist for Junior Brown. Really incredible stuff. He plucked it out of the air, and as he did so, shifted to his right, took 2 defenders out, and then ran it around the side of the box and laid it off to Nathaniel Junior Brown to score United's 4th goal. And yeah, some of the technical details, the turns and the kind of shimmies and the body feints, it's a joy to watch, and it's been really, really exciting to see him step up to the under-18 football pretty effortlessly, despite not even being, it's not a case of him being really physically developed for his age. He's still pretty slight, quite small, but he seems to ride contact well. And yeah, it's hard not to sound like I'm going overboard, because there are just so many positives coming out of his performances.
No, you're not on your own when you're sort of describing him, and everyone who watches him seems to say a similar thing. He seems like the real deal, and obviously the club feel that way, don't they? They're doing everything they can to make him feel like his long-term future is at Manchester United.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we'd be silly not to really push to him that there's a pathway there, and that there's a future for him as a really important player for Manchester United, because he'll know his worth. He'll know, how highly he's rated in, broadly speaking, in football. We already know that there's been so much interest from other clubs in England, abroad, the likes of Barcelona, Real Madrid. There's probably not a club in Europe who wouldn't snap your hand off to be able to sign him. And so United really have to not take for granted what they've got and really nurture his talent and make sure that he feels valued for the ability he has and the potential he has. And it seems like United are definitely doing that. We know there was a picture earlier in the season of Ruben Amorim with him, and I think there are conversations there. And there's the belief that he's going to be in first team training here and there this season, which for a 14-year-old is pretty mental. But yeah, the club are definitely kind of they're not taking for granted the kind of potential that we're dealing with here.
And we've seen it, haven't we, at clubs like Arsenal is probably the biggest example where young players. I know JJ Gabriel is obviously younger than the likes of.
Everyone.
Miles Lewis-Skelly or Ethan Nwaneri, but these youngsters, 15, 16-year-olds, being given an opportunity in the first team, being brought into the first team, and you could imagine, or is it safe to say you can imagine United trying to do something similar with JJ Gabriel?
Get absolutely.
Him sort of almost locked down and get him to feel part of this club.
I think so, and it's something that United, I think, in the past have been quite hesitant to do. There have been players where I felt and people have felt that maybe they could have been pushed for opportunities earlier than they did. But I think United in general, you've got to factor in the size of the club, the pressure that will no doubt be put on any young player, especially with the need for results at the moment. It's not an environment that's easy to be integrated into as a young player. So that's got to be taken into account. But I wouldn't be surprised if with Gabriel there was maybe, exceptional circumstances in how they kind of deal with his breakthrough, and maybe he does get that push a little bit earlier than we've seen before. Definitely he's on track for that, but at the same time development isn't linear. There are so many young talents who we look at their potential and say, wow, this kid could become anything, and it doesn't always work out like that. Anything from injuries and off the field issues, and anything could lead to stagnation in a young player's development. So it's hard to make any kind of bold out there predictions, but in terms of what could happen, it seems like anything is possible, to be honest.
Yeah, most definitely. Anyway, so more goals to talk about, because like you said, this was a pretty impressive win. What's next?
Yeah, so one player that I want to point out as well for a really positive performance in the first half, well, throughout the game to be honest, is Jim Thwaites. We've spoken about him quite a little bit more this season than last season. I think he's really kind of found his place in these sides and has been so impressive for me, often playing as a kind of single pivot in the midfield, whereas last season him and Ibrahimov for the under-18s played as kind of dual advanced eights, usually with a defensive midfielder behind them. Now he tends to be the deepest of United's midfielders in possession, which really shows a lot of kind of courage and bravery and ability to be taking the ball off the defence, turning away from pressure, and kind of distributing the ball either by carrying or using his really expansive passing range. And I've been thinking about another player that is, Dave Pritt, my predecessor, was very, very fond of, and that's Ethan Galbraith, who, this season he's just gone from strength to strength, has fitted in at Swansea incredibly well, getting man of the match pretty much every game for them, and seems to be really finding his feet as a professional footballer, and maybe goes into that category as a late bloomer because never really got his breakthrough at United, despite a lot of people feeling like he should have been given more of a chance, but now is really excelling in the Championship and is kind of quite an unconventional midfielder to come out of where he's from, Northern Ireland, but also Great Britain and whatever. We don't produce these kind of Spanish archetypal midfielders, and he's kind of definitely of that style. And watching Jim Thwaites, I can't help but feel that there's kind of a similarity there, and a lot of people have been talking about Galbraith, saying we missed a trick there, we wasted the chance to integrate him into the first team. And I think in Jim Thwaites there's an opportunity to kind of redeem the wrongs of the past and make sure that he is valued and given a pathway, because I really like what I'm seeing from him. Whenever
I've noticed you talk about Jim Thwaites as well, you talk about his dead ball ability as well, which is something that you're full of praise for.
Yeah, I mean, he's got such a varied skill set.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely the dead ball situations are a real strength of his. I remember last season, it felt like he was scoring a free kick every game. Every time he stepped up to free kicks from any reasonable range, it almost felt more likely that he'd score than he'd miss. Just got really kind of consistent ball striking ability and placement. And just one of those players with a real knack. I made the mistake of comparing him to James Ward-Prowse rather than David Beckham.
That's the only time I think you've ever had criticism on this channel, Finn, and that was by me.
Yeah, very fair. It was my mistake.
We're not Southampton TV. If you're going to talk about and also David Beckham was just better than James Ward-Prowse. He just wasn't.
By a little bit, yeah.
Don't give me that excuse, right? You weren't born when David Beckham was banging him in for United, right? That's no excuse at all. You should have known better. But obviously, Jim Thwaites, fantastic footballer.
Yeah.
Listen, I agree with you. I trust your judgment. If you think he's good enough, then definitely United should be doing all we can to nurture these young talents. And also, the sort of idea at United should always be, the sort of priority should be, hopefully, to get them into the first team, however long it takes. If they're not good enough, then fair enough, you move them on. But that should always be the sort of the goal.
Yeah.
Is to try and get
there's a bit of worry at the moment, isn't there, that United aren't they're maybe straying away from utilising the academy under Ruben Amorim.
Gone a bit sort of Chelsea-esque maybe in the thinking. It's like, if we nurture these players, we can flog them rather than aiming for the. I mean, you can do both. You can sell the players or move the players on that aren't quite good enough. But the priority for me should always be, if you've got a good player, try and get him to the levels where he can play for Manchester United first team.
Yeah.
There is a concern, I think, because I think we've seen it in a few match day squads already where Kobbie Mainoo's been the only academy graduate. And also, if you look at the amount of minutes academy graduates have had or are getting under Ruben Amorim, I think Kobbie Mainoo got 5 minutes against Chelsea.
Yeah,
he was the only player who got any minutes who came through the academy. I think against Fulham there wasn't anyone. Arsenal there wasn't anyone. I think I'm forgetting. I think Burnley, obviously Kobbie Mainoo again got 45 minutes.
Yeah.
But my point is it's been pretty sparse. The amount of minutes, and we've always had, ever since I've been supporting Manchester United, which is going back to the sort of the 80s, you've had at least one first team player who starts, who's come through the academy. Whether that was going way back when to Norman Whiteside or Mark Hughes, I know he returned from the transfer, but he came through the academy originally, or it was Ryan Giggs for 20 years, or it was Marcus, or it was Wes Brown, or it was Scott McTominay, or Jesse Lingard, or Mason Greenwood, or whoever. Last couple of seasons, it was Garnacho and Mainoo. Now, however, Mainoo's not really getting a start.
Yeah.
Garnacho's obviously moved on. And when you look at the other academy players, none of them are really getting
feel like anyone's really on the verge at the moment.
No.
And it's disappointing because I think there are a few that definitely are good enough to at least be on the fringes and being kind of, being on the bench and having the chance to get minutes, whether, someone has to come off injured or just, 10 minutes off the bench to see what they're about. It's a little bit troubling at the moment. And, like you've pointed out, usually United top those metrics in terms of academy players getting minutes in the league. Usually we're amongst maybe the top 2 or 3 teams in the Premier League most seasons for that. And I think if you looked at those numbers for this season, I don't have the exact numbers, but I think we'd be, much closer to the bottom in terms of academy graduate minutes. So hopefully we can see that change and we revert to, what we expect in terms of academy involvement. I understand it's a rough patch under Ruben Amorim and it's difficult to bring in these young players, but at the same time, with the underperformance across the first team, you've got to think that some of these young players could actually improve us and provide something a little bit different that we need. So, and in someone like Jim Thwaites' case, in Ruben Amorim's system, I'd have a little bit of a worry about his role, not because he's not an excellent player, but there seems to be a very specific type of midfielder. We've seen even Kobbie Mainoo, who's one of the best midfielders I've seen United produce in my lifetime, come through and is struggling for minutes because of the kind of nature of midfielder that Ruben Amorim is looking for. So there's a slight little bit of concern there. Hopefully it won't be an issue, but I think it's something to keep an eye on. Yeah,
I am. That's the only sort of negative I have about, say, the weekend, if you can call it a negative, on the first. I do worry about someone like Mainoo, for example. He just doesn't seem to be heavily in the manager's plans. I know he got a few minutes when he came on for Bruno, but it's obvious that he's not someone the manager considers a first team starter anymore. And that's disappointing to me because I love Kobbie Mainoo. I think he should be playing every week for Manchester United. I digress. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'll let you carry on before we go down a rabbit hole.
No, back on a more positive note. United, there were patches where Wolves had some possession and were threatening, and Fred Heath in net stepped up a couple of times, making really good kind of point blank reflex saves, which I was impressed by. It was good to see that he could keep his concentration despite United being the more threatening side. Also, one of the players that stood out to me was Yul Helafu, one of the players that have been promoted from the under-16s this season, first team scholar, plays at right back, but he can also play on the left. Early days from him, but he seems really kind of tidy, quite an intelligent fullback. Nothing too flashy, but keeps it simple and keeps hold of the ball really well and seems to look to play forward a lot. So definitely one to look for as the season goes on. United basically killed the game dead just before half-time. Quick-fire double from James Bailey. His was kind of a low-driven shot with his right foot from quite some range. Should have been saved, to be honest. Bit soft from the goalkeeper, but we'll take those. And then Samuel Lassalle followed up. Another kind of cheap one, a bit of a mistake at the back, and he capitalised, but you can't blame United for that.
That's what you got to do.
And that was 3-0 going into half-time, so lovely stuff.
Easy pickings. How did the second half pan out?
Pretty similar, to be honest. United, I feel like we never felt that threatened, and a lot of the kind of the same happened. So JJ Gabriel again was just continuing to be a real nuisance, picking up the ball wide. He played as more of a left winger, kind of his natural role in the second half. A lot of kind of 1v1 isolation, which he just thrives in. And I really enjoyed his intensity. Always looking to be found on the ball, pressing opponents, really getting stuck in defensively, which is positive to see. And like I mentioned earlier, he got the assist for Nathaniel Junior Brown with a really lovely bit of trickery in the box. United sit top of the under-18 North table, 5 wins out of 5, 15 goals scored, 0 conceded.
Darren Fletcher doing absolute bits as under-18s coach, isn't he? He's
really exciting.
Smashing it, man. Seriously.
People are talking about an interim this season if Amarim was to go.
If there was an issue there, then not that we want that to happen, or we're saying it will happen, just if it does happen, Darren Fletcher might be a strong contender for that role. But listen, we don't want to be too negative about the manager because we're winning football matches. Let's talk about the under-21s then.
Yes, more of the same, to be honest.
This is the best result of the weekend.
Yeah, a really, really important one. United versus Liverpool away. And of course we won. It's never in doubt.
Never in doubt. That's what we do. We go to Liverpool and we win.
Yeah, I think it's interesting watching the under-21s this season, because in the past few seasons I feel like the under-21s have been a little bit neglected. Feels like maybe it's where talents go when they've kind of stagnated and it's a little bit of a difficult patch for some of them. But this season it feels a little bit different, because I think they're benefiting from basically last year and the year before's under-18 squads, who obviously have been so successful, stepping up and becoming a kind of competitive force in the PL2. It was an interesting start. Liverpool actually, I'd say, were the better team to start off in the first half. And United were coming off at the back of a loss at Brackley Town in the week, so a little bit
one extreme to the other.
Yeah, but that was in the National League Cup, so
doesn't count.
No one cares. So there was a bit of a miscommunication from Diego Leon and Bendito Mantato. It was Leon's first competitive start for United. And I think it's been a little bit difficult for him to adapt and maybe get used to English football. I think at times he was struggling with his positioning and kind of knowing where he should be at certain times, and I think it did kind of lead to United conceding the goal early on.
Well, that's what he's in the under-21s to learn, isn't it?
Exactly.
It's a learning curve.
Yeah, absolutely.
So hopefully he will learn from it and he can iron out these sort of errors and just get used to English football, because there's a reason he's brought over.
Yeah, I think United knew that they were signing a player who wasn't the finished article and is still fairly raw and has developing to do. And this is natural. And this is, you want to be making your mistakes in academy football and in games that maybe aren't as important, so that you can prepare yourself for playing first team football eventually. So yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about him. I think there's still lots of potential there, but definitely still a bit of a bedding in period for him. And it was maybe his positioning that led to Liverpool scoring their early goal. Will Murdoch saved the initial effort from their winger, but Michael Laffey was there to head in. A little bit of a difficult one to take, but United kind of stepped up in the second part of the first half. Chido Obi was really impressive. Yeah. The Fletcher twins, Shea Lacey starting on the right. A lot of the players that we've seen dominate for the under-18s in the past couple of seasons, doing what they do best. And yeah, United found their equaliser through Chido Obi, of course. A little exchange on the right-hand side through Lacey and Tyler Fletcher, who drove through the middle onto the edge of the box, laid it off to Chido Obi. Lovely first-time finish, near post, to equalise things. And it's what you expect from Chido Obi, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a bit of a weird one with Chido, isn't it? Because he was sort of thrown in a little bit last season, where it went from sort of him, being used sparingly and getting cameos, to him almost being expected to carry United over the line in certain games. And obviously, he couldn't play in the Europa, and people were saying that was a mistake, that we should have been, if we could have, we should have been able to get him in that competition. So it has been interesting, the fact that he's almost had to take a step back this season, considering how often he was used towards the end of last season. But he's obviously doing a good job for the under-21s, and I think there may be a lesson to be learned there of throwing a youngster in, especially a striker, because you can see at the minute with Benjamin Sesko how he's getting criticism and questioned, and he's an experienced, I know he's only young, but an experienced, top-level, expensive striker. Yeah. So for a teenager to be thrown in who'd had like no minutes of professional football, it was a bit harsh. So I'm hoping he can sort of take a step back, get back to what he's does best, scoring loads of goals, and then eventually be brought into the first team when he's ready.
Yeah, absolutely. I think maybe he was a bit of a victim of United's circumstances in the first team last season, with Rasmus Højlund, struggling to really find his footing again and become a reliable goal scorer. The onus kind of got put on Chido Obi by default, just because he was pretty much the only other natural striker option in and around the squad. And that's difficult to kind of live up to, especially with how tricky it is for any United striker to perform well at the moment. So yeah, and I think there's definitely valuable development for him to still gain, even in under-21 football. I think he's been getting used to not having so many touches in a game, not having so many opportunities to run in behind, because there's a little bit more structure, a bit more physicality in under-21 football. And I think he's still kind of benefiting from that opportunity and experience. So definitely not a problem for his development. But another really impressive performance from him. Some really nice bits of trickery. One bit got clipped on Twitter a few times. Kind of a flip-flap on the left wing, taking out two Liverpool defenders. Really, really pleased with what I saw from him. United throughout the second half were playing for the winner, obviously. James Scanlon replaced Diego Leon at half-time, and Bendito Mantato moved down to left-back. Which we've seen a few times from him this season and in seasons gone by, and it's making me think that if he is to be given an opportunity in the first team, which is kind of what was suggested to me last season, that he's one of the ones kind of on the verge. I think he might first be tried at maybe left wing back. Because he's got that physicality, the athleticism that you want in an Amorim wing back, but he can also do the defensive jobs. But he's capable 1v1, got a good final ball, and he did play a role in the winner. Ran it down the left wing, cut it back. Chido Obi's effort was deflected into the feet of Jayden Camerson, who was able to poke home and secure the 2-1 victory for United.
Fantastic. That's what we want. Wins over Liverpool. Yeah. That's what we expect at Manchester United, and that's what I expect when the first team go to Anfield in a few weeks. Positive vibes again. Yeah, I mean both teams. Both teams. To interrupt, they're both top of their league. No. Both. Please do. 100% win record so far. Yeah. Pretty flawless start in terms of domestic competition. That's what we love to hear. Long may it continue. And it's the usual suspects we're here for a reason. You know, you've mentioned Jim Thwaites quite a lot. You've mentioned Shea Lacey. You've mentioned Chido Obi, obviously. And JJ Gabriel is a name that keeps popping up. There's a reason they keep popping up. They keep doing the things that you want to see from Manchester United players at any level. So always want to keep an eye on. And maybe the sort of the bit of doom and gloom we've got on the lack of academy players in the first team. Maybe this is just a phase.
I really hope it is just a phase.
Because a lot of the players you speak about, and we've seen the levels they are, and everyone who talks about him. This isn't just us saying, "Oh, they're good for the academy, so they're good first team." There feels like there's a general buzz around a lot of these players. So
the results speak for themselves.
Exactly. You know, sort of, absolutely exemplary performances and results and top of your tables. What can you keep? You know, what more can you do? Finn, always a pleasure. Make sure you go and check out Academy Scoop. Covers all the academy games, obviously under the 21s and the first team as well. And he's always got a good take on what's happening with the academy and the players coming through the academy into the first team. So make sure you're following him on all your socials. That's been Finn. I've been Jay. This has been Academy Review. Don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to check out our merch as well. There's a link in the description. Thanks for watching.